Hi, I'm Anne Marie Hansen from Environmental Studies at University of Illinois Springfield, and I'm here with my student. Who's going to introduce herself?
I'm Kathleen Calhoun, and I'm an environmental studies major here at UIS. And today we are going to discuss our research project evaluating plastic litter prevention strategies on Lake Springfield here in Illinois.
So this project that we are going to talk about today has also been stalled for almost a year due to COVID and our remote work requirements. But it's part of a larger set of activities of the UIS Confluence Lab, which is a teaching and learning lab that I established in 2020 with Dr. Tom Rothfuss, who's also name is on this presentation, and he's the director of the 2 field stations here at UIS. So the overall mission of our UIS Confluence Lab is to develop new ways to study and solve freshwater issues, especially in Illinois waterways, by facilitating the integration of science, art, and community. Also by focusing on interdisciplinary problem-based learning experiences that can address current challenges that are facing communities along fresh waterways and the communities in which our students live. So one of our initial projects that we're going to talk about today and from our teaching and learning lab is focused on plastic pollution in central Illinois. And a main goal is to make social connections between plastic use, plastic disposal, and those scientific practices that we use to document the harm caused by discarded plastic in our bodies and water bodies. So the images I've shared with you on this slide demonstrate some of the previous activities that we have done with UIS students. So for example, you can see the Instagram post. We had students who created a PR campaign. We also had students working in art and design courses who have created signage we've used along the lake, as well as infographics for the community. We also have had archaeology students who worked on garbology studies, so analyzing existing litter and pollution through a lens of material cultural studies. Also, as we'll see in future slides, we worked with many students in environmental science, also computer science, and together with students using GIS.
So our current project is addressing cigarette waste and abandoned fishing gear because they are 2 of the most common types of plastic litter found in and near US shorelines and waterways. So not necessarily by weight, but by item count of objects littered. And our lab found that macroplastic pollution levels are at least as high as those in marine coastal areas with similar population and recreational activities. We also found that the most common plastic debris items are the same in oceanic and central Illinois waterways. This includes cigarette butts, abandoned fishing gear, and plastic beverage and food containers. Lake Springfield is an important site because it is a small inland lake and it is semi-urban, but also has agricultural and industrial areas nearby. Also, there are tens of thousands of small inland lakes in the US Midwest with somewhat similar characteristics. These small freshwater bodies are also somewhat outside the focus of policy and public concern for plastic pollution, because most published studies on plastic litter and pollution are focused on the ocean or on the flows of plastics from very dense large cities through rivers to the ocean. So our project seeks to frame the problem through local perspectives to find the most engaging ways to inform the public about plastic pollution in inland waterways, but also to directly apply our research findings to assist in lake management and be applicable to other small inland fresh waterways. So next, our methods. So our methods included collecting data from 11 fishing line recycling bins on Lake Springfield, located at popular fishing sites. So we collect recycled fishing line and lures once per month and go through the contents, and we keep track of the weight and the count of items and make note of other debris items that are placed in the bins. And in March 2020, we also installed 3 ballot bin cigarette waste receptacles. And the image here on the left is from 24 hours after the bins were installed in March 2020. And initially we saw a lot of use, but they were installed right before the lockdown, so we don't yet have sufficient data. And as we will show in a minute, these bins were not adequate as many people do not see cigarette butts as litter.
This map is just a Google Earth map that we created of Lake Springfield to demonstrate like where we installed where the fishing line recycling bins were installed. And this slide shows a visual survey of cigarette litter that was done by our colleague Tom Rolfes, and this was from July 2020, and just includes one of our 11 sites. So he went around the entire parking lot of one of the popular fishing areas and recorded GPS coordinates for each piece of cigarette litter that was found on just one day. So as you can see, we did start installing these cigarette ballot bins to raise awareness. It was a good start, but we will be adding several more additional cigarette litter collection bins and trying different strategies out this summer during the recreational fishing season to try to determine if alternate litter prevention methods can make this problem both more visible to lake users, but also to inspire more cigarette litter recycling.
And here we have some of the numbers from our first year. And we took the weights of the fishing line and collected almost 2 kilograms of line, from which we approximated the length to be about 11.5 miles of recycled fishing line. We estimated the length of the samples because this measurement is more comprehensible to the public to demonstrate how much line was prevented from ending up in Lake Springfield. And we also recovered 160 fishing lures so far, which we are saving for future recycling. We did collect some litter in the ballot boxes, but there is still too much litter elsewhere, so we still don't have enough data to understand littering patterns. So we will be expanding this part of the project over the summer.
Okay, so now we will just say like what we are going to do, since as we mentioned, we're hoping this summer to like greatly expand the work that we were doing. So in the summer, we're going to add we're going to add more components to the research. And here what the maps on this slide demonstrate, I had another graduate student from the GIS lab created shoreline maps of each existing site. So you can't perhaps see very well on the map just because of the size of looking at it on a computer screen. But he mapped out the length of the shoreline at every single site. So eventually we will have, right, litter maps that look like that visual survey taken last summer, but we will have one of those for each of the 11 existing sites and additional shoreline sites. So we're going to take the GPS coordinates of all the cigarette litter as well as other types of litter, both within 10 feet of the shoreline, but also separately in the recreational parks and picnic areas that line the lake. So as I mentioned, we're also going to add 5 more fishing line recycling bins and place cigarette waste bins at all the fishing sites. And I'm sorry, you're gonna talk.
But this image is just an example of the type of cigarette bins we might make. As you can see there on the type, they look like a pretty big cigarette. So we are still working on the design, but hopefully we'll be able to get something that the public will use and like.
And we thought the benefit of this design is we're using the similar materials we were already using for the fishing line recycling. So they are low cost materials, but hoping to also have low cost materials can be used by the local parks that will also have a larger impact. Okay. And so we skipped ahead. So again, this project is part of a larger set of activities for the UIS Confluence Lab. In particular, this project has led us to have strong local collaborations with the City of Springfield and CWLP. The municipal power, which CWLP is the City Water, Light and Power Company here in Springfield, and it's the municipal power and water company that also manages the recreational and fishing areas around Lake Springfield. As we gradually are able to engage in more in-person work, we're also going to have more collaborations with students in diverse departments across campus. Again, working with communications, archaeology, chemistry students, also computer science students who are going to do some image work with AI and looking at being able to use drones to help us identify and take pictures of some of the litter around the lake. Also being able to connect them with local businesses and agencies to address this problem and related other freshwater issues in the community. So in addition to these Springfield-based projects, thinking ahead to the next 3 to 5 years, we plan to expand this project through the Illinois Discovery Institute and other similar statewide initiatives that are also focused on using convergent teaching and applied research methods to solve grand challenges that play out in local Illinois communities. And so with that, that is all we have to share with you for today, but that's a little bit about our work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We do have time for several questions. So
Okay. Yep. The litter collection efforts are great. However, where does the collected litter go and how can we be sure that it doesn't get back into the environment?
Yeah, so right, as of now with our litter, with our fishing line, so we are collecting all of the fishing line and storing it, but we will be sending it to a specific agency at the moment that should say company that specifically recycles plastic fishing line, with the goal of turning this into, when we have enough, to turn it into something like a flower pot or even a bench that we can put here at our field station. As terms of the cigarette litter, again, as of now, we have just collected it and haven't sent it to recycling, but we are looking for companies specifically saving that so we can use it to send it to companies that work specifically with recycling cigarette litter.
Do we have time for another comment?
yes,
Okay. Would be really neat to work with local school to do an art project and turn the collected trash into an educational art campaign, which you kind of just mentioned. So
So well, 2 years ago when we started this, we did have some UIS undergrad art students who did use some of the collected litter. When we're thinking about K through 12, we're also we concerned a little bit about the safety protocols of having students use the collected litter. So we haven't done that yet, but we agree, like we think that would be a very cool project, just thinking about how to do it safely is what we are thinking about for the future.